A reading from the book of Genesis, chapter 2. In the day that the Lord God made the earth and the heavens, when no plant of the field was yet in the earth, and no herb of the field had yet sprung up, for the Lord God had not caused it to rain upon the earth, and there was no one to till the ground, but a stream would rise from the earth and water the whole face of the ground. Then the Lord God formed man from the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and the man became a living being. And the Lord God planted a garden in Eden in the east, and there he put the man whom he had formed. Out of the ground the Lord God made to grow every tree that is pleasant to the sight and good for food. The tree of life also in the midst of the garden, and the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. A river flows out of Eden to water the garden, and from there it divides and becomes 4 branches. Then the Lord God took the man and put him in the Garden of Eden to till it and keep it.
From Revelations 21:22. Then I saw a new heaven and a new earth. For the first heaven and the first earth had passed away, and the sea was no more. And I saw the holy city, the new Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God, prepared as a bride adorned for her husband. And the one who was seated on the throne said, "Behold, I am making all things new." And in the Spirit, he carried me away to a great high mountain and showed me the holy city of Jerusalem coming down out of heaven from God. It has the glory of God and a radiance like a very rare jewel, like jasper, clear as crystal. I saw no temple in the city, for its temple is the Lord God, the Almighty, and the Lamb. Then the angel showed me the river of water, of life, bright as crystal, flowing from the throne of God and the Lamb through the middle of the street of the city. On either side of the river is the tree of life, with its 12 kinds of fruit, producing its fruit each month, and the leaves of the tree for the healing of the nations. Nothing accused will be found there anymore, but the throne of God and of the Lamb will be in it, and his servants will worship him. They will see his face, and his name will be on their foreheads. And there will be no more night. They need no light of lamp or sun, for the Lord God will be their light, and they will reign forever and ever. And he said to me, "Behold, I am coming soon."
Tell me a story, a grand story in all its glory. For a grand story it must be, given a 14 billion year history of evolution, the interconnectedness and interdependence of every living being, encompassing the heavens and the earth, a story that includes human life, a story that includes us. Tell me a story, not a manual or a taxonomy, no. Rather a poem, a love song to the universe, to all that ever was and is and ever will be. For in birthing the consciousness present in every life form on the planet, and in human intelligence, the deepest mystery of the universe has now become aware of itself, partially aware at least, and it wonders in awe at the miracle of it all and seeks meaning for its own existence. The Bible begins in a garden with rivers, and at its heart, a tree called life. And it ends in a city at whose heart is a garden with a river and a tree called life. We diminish the Bible by making it science. The Bible's beauty, and frankly, its continuing relevance, is its majestic and mythological, poetic and lyrical sweep, and its emphasis on a psychological, moral, spiritual landscape. Every culture, every religion, the Bible too, has projected its highest aspirations and deepest dreams onto the landscape of the heart that is inextricably connected to the earth, to the universe itself. Our species has been around for 200,000 years, and modern Homo sapiens for just the last 75,000 years. And from the beginning, two questions have consumed our ancestors and us as well. How and why? In the last 50 years, climate scientists and leaders in every wisdom tradition, both have been revealing more about the universe out there, as well as the inner universe, the universe in here, which is necessitating a change in the way we tell our story, the story of our relation to the earth. And they've revealed to us three revolutionary truths. First, we don't just come from the earth, we are the earth. And we're of the stars too. We are the stars. Ashes to ashes, dust to dust, stardust to stardust. Why does it take us dying to finally get it? Scientists tell us that still today, with every breath we breathe in and out, atoms from the Big Bang. Second, even more, humanity is creation now self-aware. Humanity is creation's self-consciousness. Human reason, the rational mind, a mature expression of 14 billion years of evolution. I'm still trying to figure out, I'm still trying to fully comprehend these implications for faith. The various levels of consciousness in both plant and animal life and human self-consciousness are all of one fabric in the ever-evolving universe. We are the creation now conscious of itself. And third, even more, this unity is no mere homogeneous unity. From that primordial singularity, universes were born with black holes and stars and planets. And 3.8 billion years ago, from the first living cell, 8.5 million species. We human beings are part of that family tree of life. Biological diversity within a multicultural world. Our human diversity, the diversity of colors and languages and ethnicities, our cultural diversity is biodiversity, self-aware. The stories we tell, the metaphors we use matter. In my lifetime, the metaphors of our relationship with the earth have evolved from dominion to stewardship to St. Francis's brother, sun, sister, moon, which gets pretty close, but then even to human beings as creation's self-consciousness and its expression in biocultural diversity. For me, and I'm speaking very personally here, for me, there has been no greater challenge to and no greater inspiration for my own spiritual growth than this shift. Father Thomas Berry, We are both earthlings and worldlings. We are of the earth. We are in the world. Or Elizabeth Barrett Browning, earth's crammed with heaven, and every common bush afire with God. But only he who sees takes off his shoes. The rest sit around and pluck blackberries. Or maybe Annie Dillard said it best. Skin was earth, it was soil. I could see, even on my own skin, the joined trapezoids of dust. Speaks God had wetted and stuck with his spit the morning he made Adam from dirt. Now, all these generations later, we can still see on our own skin the inherited prints of the dust specks of Eden. So on this 51st anniversary of Earth Day, this past Thursday, what do these truths mean for us as people of faith? Biocultural interpenetrated diversity. Just as plants and animals are disappearing in an unprecedented wave of extinction, of the 7,000 languages and cultures present in the world today, scientists tell us that half of them are likely to disappear in our lifetimes. In our lifetimes. And just as biodiversity is built into the very structure of the universe, so cultural diversity too, including religious diversity, is built into the very structure of what it means to be human. The search for meaning is built into human DNA. Every culture is a unique expression of the human heart and imagination, a unique answer to the question, what does it mean to be human? So tell me a story, because the stories we tell matter. Ecology is biology, is cosmology, is anthropology. How we understand our proper relationship to the earth matters for how we understand our relationship to each other. Our theologies impact our ecologies. This strikes at the very heart of the crisis of religion today. On March 30th, just 3.5 weeks ago, the NPR headline was striking. For the first time since Gallup, it said, since Gallup began asking the question in 1937, fewer than half, 47%, fewer than half of US adults interviewed said they belonged to a church or synagogue or mosque. 2,000 years of Christian history, so much hatred and violence, so many lives wasted, the church's credibility too. All because we spent so much time on incestuous quarrels no one outside the church cared about, because we didn't get our story right. The two great crises we face as a species, tribalism and the climate crisis, each one objectifies the other. The first one, scapegoats. The second one, pillages. And we justify each one with religious rationales. Like biodiversity, the reason multiculturalism is so important, different customs, different traditions, different ways of believing. The reason multiculturalism is so important is because They offer us other possibilities, alternative ways of relating to each other, to the earth, which liberate us from our parochial, tribal castes to embrace the totality of life. Science and spirit both. The telescope and microscope and the world's the world's religious traditions too. They all testify to the same truth. The energy that gave rise to the heavens and the earth, that brought forth the seas and the landforms, that stirred the first living cell, and from it brought forth all creatures great and small. Every living being, and finally walked upright, forming our ancestors, guiding us through 2,000 bloody centuries, 200,000 years of human history. That same energy has now gifted us with such wondrous diversity, birthed within us a consciousness that can reflect in awe on this evolutionary process, and minds inspired by both reason and enchantment that can create a future that is worthy of such a glorious, even sacred history. Only if we honor it, only if we tell a different story, only if we sing a new song. Because the myths, the metaphors matter. It matters if you look at trees as potential lumber, or as Khalil Gibran describes them, trees are poems the earth writes upon the sky. We fell them down and turn them into paper that we may record our emptiness. It matters if we view stones as potential energy waiting to be crushed, or as the stuff of cairns, of altars. It matters if we look at a mountain as something to be mined, or as the abode of a living spirit. Metaphors matter. We hail as heroes those who conquer mountains and oceans, jungles and Arctic cold, even space itself, as crowning achievements of the human spirit, conquering our fears, so human-centric of us, only so we can exploit their natural resources, reducing our planet to a commodity, a raw resource to be consumed at our whim. That's why I say, tell me a story. No longer a story of domination, but one of imagination. Midwives of a diverse, interdependent, enchanted multiverse, alive, inspirited. Tell me a story. 11 days ago, April 14th, we remembered the 57th anniversary of the death of Rachel Carson, marine biologist, mother of the conservationist movement, author of the seminal book, Silent Spring. In 2018, British author Neil Gaiman wrote a poem in her honor, After Silence, for Rachel Carson. And this is how it ends. There's a voice that rumbles beneath us, and after the end, the voice still reaches us. Like a bird that cries in hunger, or a song that pleads for a different future, because all of us dream of a different future, and somebody needs to listen, to pause, to hold, to inhale, and find that moment before the exhale when everything is in balance and nothing moves. In balance, here's life, here's death, and this is eternity holding its breath. After the world has ended, after the silent spring, into the waiting silence another song begins. Nothing is ever over. Life breathes life in its turn. Sometimes the people listen. Sometimes the people learn. Who speaks and why? Who speaks and why? And that's my point. We Christians have a story to tell, but it must be the right story. Progressive churches rightly realize the sins of our privileged castes, racial and national, economic and ethnic, even religious tribalisms. If the church wants to be relevant again beyond its own tribal walls, then it must move beyond the incestuous theological issues most of them concern themselves with. The world's religious traditions they could be on the cutting edge of the conversation about the survival not only of our species, but of the planet itself. Only if they shift it from our techno-industrial consciousness to a universal ecological consciousness. So, what if we changed our stories? What if we re-mythologized our story to transcend not only human tribalisms, but species tribalisms, to recognize ourselves as part of the larger story of the universe? Let's set loose the creative energies of physicists and biologists and cosmologists, of poets and musicians and artists too, and yes, the wisdom of the many spiritual traditions to create new images to tell our newly restored story. Father Thomas Berry again. Everything has a right to be recognized and revered. Trees have tree rights. Insects have insect rights. Rivers have river rights. Mountains have mountain rights. And Greta Thunberg, we must learn to speak the language of the planet. And if we humbly listen, what would we hear her speaking? The earth, our mother. What if it was more than a metaphor? What if we really believed it true? Earth alive, our womb, our nurturer, and in turn, worthy of our loving embracing. We have a story. The Bible begins with the birth of light, first created, and ends with no more night, no need for lamp or sun, for the Lord is their light. The Bible begins in a garden with rivers and at its heart a tree called life, and it ends in a city at whose heart is a garden with a river and a tree called life. The Bible begins with the creation of the heavens and the earth, and it ends with the creation of a new heaven and a new earth. Not another heaven and another earth, but this heaven and this earth renewed. So tell me a story, my friends, and sing me anew more intimate love song. The Bible's song, and its secret too, is that, now here it is, here's the secret. You, me, we are the new creation. We are the stuff of the new heaven and the new earth. Earth dust, star dust, now self-aware. The multiverse, beautiful, glorious, awe-invoking, biocultural diversity, now conscious of itself, beginning and ending in the heart of God, but made manifest in you and me, who reminds us, behold, I make all things, behold, I make all things new.